All right, so welcome to everyone. And I'm going to start with, sorry, I'm going to go ahead, 8:05, so 5 minutes after the hour. So I think it's a good time to actually get started on the presentation itself. Let me get that up. There we go. All right, everybody see those okay? It should, oh, wait, what am I looking at? Yeah, okay, so those are the slides, right? That looks weird though. Sorry, it looks weird on my screen, so let me just double check and make sure I'm doing this right. And that one. Yeah, okay. All right. All right. Yeah, that looks okay. Straight. It looks strange on here, but I think it's okay. Everybody can just see the slides. I'm guessing.
Yes.
Thank you. Because I just realized I can't see chat now that I've just changed the way this is. Let me see if I can get that. There we go. All right. All right. So I'll try and follow chat as well. So if people are trying to ask questions during the session, you can try chat. You can go. I will probably look at that the document I just put up after, or maybe stop halfway in between and see where people are. But also feel free to just unmute and ask me questions if things aren't clear. So first off, welcome to everyone here. It should be a mix of folks from our different programs that we have under our open source research experience. So that could include GSOC, Google Summer of Code, as well as the Summer of Reproducibility. We may have other sponsored students from other sponsored programs also joining us over the course of the summer. But I like to keep everybody in one large cohort as well. It gives us a chance to talk about the different work we're doing and get people a chance to kind of meet a larger group of people. Of course, you'll also have your individual cohorts with you and your mentors, and then some of your mentors will have multiple students that you're working with. So those are also really important communities for you to be in. But I just want to make sure everybody realizes you're also a part of our larger OSRE community, and that for no matter what program you're technically a part of, be it GSOC or Summer Reproducibility, I am the person you can go to with questions, and I'm generally managing the admin for like everything that students have to touch pretty much in the OSRE, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the presentation. All right, so this is me. I'm executive director of the Center for Research and Open Source Software, as well as our newly started open source program office. And I work to support open source, particularly work to support the open source communities here. One of the big things I like to look at are these mentorship programs that we do over the summer. That's one of my big focus of my work. As you can see, I'm not a computer scientist. I basically have experience with managing and running research organizations. So that's where I kind of came into CROSS and the OSPO. But I've definitely really enjoyed working with open source communities over the last 7 years now. And this program, starting with GSOC and then moving on to OSRE, has been one of my favorite parts of this job. So I always call it kind of my baby. Now, CROSS, just to give you a quick overview of who we are. We started with CROSS in 2015, and that is part of the University of California, Santa Cruz, and specifically the Baskin School of Engineering. And we were given a endowment by UCSC alumni, Sage Weil, who started the CEF open source storage project. And so we were able to create this research center called the Center for Research and Open Source Software. And the main idea for that was to kind of connect the gap, fill that gap between what students were working on in university and what could be seen as a viable open source project. And that's where we got our start. And we had kind of 3 pillars of teaching, so the education part, funding research, and funding incubator projects. And so we did that for the first at least 5 years. And CROSS still exists, but one thing we noticed was that we really needed to kind of expand some of the work that we were doing, and it didn't fit under a traditional research center. So with funding from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, we have been starting and working on over the last 2 years the creation of what's called an open source program office, or an OSPO. So that's the one that you see when that's the technical mentor organization that you are all under, like the umbrella organization that all of the projects that y'all are working on are under. We call it the UC OSPO, but and then the full name is really the OSPO at UC Santa Cruz, because we are also working with other University of California campuses to create a UC network of OSPOs. And our mission really now with the OSPO is to promote open source literacy and enable students and academic research to work together, and also connect scientists or researchers with other stakeholders, with other sponsors to support their research. You can learn more about this if you just go to our website, which I know a lot of you have seen because that's where all of the OSRE related information is on. And the 3 programs that we're really similar to what we had previously, kind of 3 pillars. We have a research experience, which is this program, which is kind of our education focus. We also have an incubator fellowship, which a couple of the mentors are part of. And then we also have a lot of focus on open source. So mentorship, incubator, and education are kind of our 3 focus that we have under the OSPO. Let's see. So that's who we are, and that's why. And so when you see UC OSPO, that's why I also want to make sure everybody understood what the name of the mentor organization you're working with means. So sometimes you'll see things about cross, because originally all of the work that we were doing under GSOC and OSRE was actually listed under cross, and this is the first year that we've changed kind of the name that is associated with our mentor organization. All right. So also I like to get clarify any questions people had about what the differences are of the different programs. I would say our umbrella program under the OSPO and had been under cross is what we call the open source research experience, OSRE. So from our perspective, all these mentorship programs that we do over the summer, be it GSOC, Summer of Reproducibility, fall under this umbrella, the open source research experience, and all of you are part of that cohort. And this is all built upon our experience with GSOC, with the Google Summer of Code. That's how we got started into these type of programs. But at one point we thought, well, hey, we can, aside from working with GSOC, we can work with other sponsors and other organizations to expand it, because there are, and some of you may know, some limitations with regards to GSOC that maybe didn't always fit the needs of our mentors or the needs of students that want to work with us. For instance, GSOC doesn't allow students to work with, or does not allow, but it frowns upon students from a specific university working with a faculty from their university under the program. So that was a limitation that we had to figure out, like, well, what happens when we get a student who wants to work with a faculty and it's a really good match? How do we deal with that? So that was kind of one of those things that OSRE could take care of, but we can't, wouldn't make sense to work under GSOC. But we do keep the OSRE and GSOC activities in parallel, because generally speaking, GSOC is a huge source of the student slots that we get. Like this year, I think we got 14, which is about half of the slots this year of you would be working under GSOC. So you'll be you're considered the GSOC contributors as well as OSRE contributors. And the point, of course, just similar to GSOC, is that the OSRE aims to jumpstart a lot of developer communities within UC-based open source projects. That's where we got it. It's one of our main purposes for it. And a lot of the OSRE projects are UC-based researchers. This has been a change now with the Summer Reproducibility, which I'll talk about in a second. But then students, of course, just like GSOC, can be from anywhere. And of course, you'll be a part of this program, similar to GSOC and other programs like this. It's a paid fellowship, and you're working with experienced mentors, and you're gaining valuable tools, and showing that you have practical skills at the end of this. So that's a really huge part of why we do the OSRE, as well as why we've been so excited to be part of the GSOC for so long. Okay. A quick background for anybody who doesn't know GSOC. I mean, some of the folks who came in through the Summer of Reproducibility maybe didn't understand why we were using the GSOC platform for a lot of the work that we were doing. But part of it is because it's such a well-known, well-respected platform and program. It's been going on almost 20 years now. Next year will be its 20th anniversary. And it really does get students and mentors from all over the world together. And so it's a great program that we really enjoyed being part of since 2018. And it you know, and it's also helping I mean, you know, GSOC is a great source of support for students. So that's been a huge part of why we like to keep it. We use the portal, for instance, this time around for all of it, because it just is, you know, a relatively useful system to kind of work through. I think we're going to change a little bit. Where next year we had a few things we kind of noticed were hard. We didn't mesh as well, but I think all in all it worked out fine. And then the key actors which people keep hearing these terms is like a mentor organization and org admins, which is, you know, what we are and will be similar to what you see in the OSRE kind of way we talk about things in the OSRE in general, and then mentors and contributors and students. So Google Summer of Code has contributors. They also, that's what they used to be called students, but because they recognized that it was that the newcomers coming in, not all of them were undergraduates, that they changed that terminology to be contributors a couple of years back. And the focus for them is anyone who's new to open source. All right. The Summer of Reproducibility, this is the first year we're doing this, and it is funded as part of the Repetto project under the NSF, and that project is a joint project between the University of Chicago, UC Santa Cruz, and NYU. And a bunch of a couple of our PIs, those of us, you know, collaborators from that project, are mentors under the Summer of Reproducibility. And the structure for the Summer of Reproducibility is very similar to the OSRE, to GSOC. It's just that the Summer of Reproducibility and the funding we're getting through the National Science Foundation, which is a federal funded, US federal funded foundation, allowed us to work with mentors, not just within the University of California system, but any mentor that's working on reproducibility issues. And so that's why you'll see a large number of mentors on this call and else from, you know, and throughout the whole process, who are not from a University of California, but are from any number of universities all over the world. And this has been kind of an exciting thing that we're doing. Again, we're trying to keep it in parallel with the with the Google Summer of Code and our other activities, just to give us a chance to, again, have the cohort be together. But also we found that being able to post a lot of those projects on through the Google Summer of Code as a mentor organization there really brought in a very diverse group of potential students, and I think opened up our mentor projects to a lot more people and a lot more talent. So that was, I think, a really big part of it, that I think was definitely a benefit for taking that approach, and keeping the two, all of the projects kind of intertwined when it came to application and proposal phases. So I know it was confusing a little bit because they are kind of they're not exactly the same types of projects, but in the end, I think that having that wider breadth of being able to reach a wider group of people was actually really, really beneficial. Let me see. So what's the differences? And that's important, I think, to talk about today for our students, but also to some extent for our mentors, in case there's questions. I mean, now there are a lot of differences from the student's perspective on a day-to-day basis. So from the from those of you working on the program. You'll see there'll be differences in the administrative processes. A lot of more stuff goes through for summer reproducibility. Everything goes through me and our office, as opposed to with GSOC, where everything goes through the GSOC administrators. So your stipends, and like that's probably the biggest difference that you'll see, is that GSOC contributors have all of their financial and everything that you're working on to get your stipend goes through a completely different process. So GSOC take care of that. And I actually don't see any of that. So I am like the worst person to ask about those things, because I will always just I'll go ask GSOC support, because we don't see it. So I know a little bit about it just through what students have told me, but the GSOC administrators take care of that. Whereas with the SOR, it's coming completely through the University of California. So I am, processing those payments with our business folks here at UCSC. So you'll see emails from a UCSC person, probably CCing me, saying, this is the information we're going to need. And that should, by the way, be coming within the next week or so. I need to get all of that processed. But generally speaking, the payments will start. Stipend payments generally start the last part of the first month. So like towards the end of June, I'll put out an email with the actual, for the SOR folks, I'll put an email with the actual stipend dates probably by next week. And GSOC, you may already have seen those. I think those are typically, for GSOC students, those are typically connected to your evaluations. So you'll see a stipend after your first evaluation, and then I think there's a second stipend in between there. And then there's a final stipend, if that's what I recall. But I would need to double check those, actually, because they changed it around a little bit in the last couple of years. You'll see differences in your evaluation portals and timelines. I'm trying to make them similar, but you, like GSOC contributors, use the GSOC portal for your evaluations. SOR and other people on other programs will use a similarly set up portal that what we've constructed, and it has very similar questions. So I like to keep that consistency and not make it more burdensome for one set of contributors or fellows. So yes, you'll see something, and they're really, actually, for any of you who haven't filled out one of these forms yet, they are very simple. They are, how's everything going? Do you have a rating for your mentor, rating for yourself? Do you feel like you're right on track? And they're really short, maybe 10-minute evaluations. I think some people will do it within 5. But they are important. I'll talk about that a little bit. They are important to finish, though. You'll notice the difference is also a mentor, like I said, mentor affiliations. For those of you in the summer of reproducibility, a lot of your mentors are not UC affiliated researchers, and those are from you for GSOC. At least one of your mentors should be UC affiliated, and that's generally not I don't think a huge difference for you, because the work doesn't really change. Also, terminology wise, for the OSRE, for GSOC, we use the contributor terminology, which is what GSOC uses, and for SOR, for the summer reproducibility, I've been using the term fellows, because going through a university process, the term fellowship is a lot easier for us to explain to our business folks than like anything else. So I'm typically referring to you an official documentation as reproducibility fellows, and so that's what you should be seeing. But again, there's a lot of overlap and similarities. You're all under the open source research experience. From our perspective, you all have to work through me as the org admin. And so all the questions can come to me, and really the project activities and deliverables stay the same. So what you proposed in your project and what you're working on, in your proposal for your project, and what you have done with what you have agreed to with your mentors for what your timelines are and your deliverables are, don't change. So they should all be the same. Those are things to keep in mind over the next couple weeks. that if there are changes on that, it's really something useful to alert me to if you have any changes in like duration of your project, and all of those are doable. It just needs to be people need to be let me know. So especially for the GSOC folks, because that actually has to change on the portal and only I can change that. So if you, for instance, want to lengthen your project time frame, which is allowable, I think they do it in like 2 weeks supplements, like you can have a 10-week or a 12-week or a 14-week, like something like that. Let me know, because that has to happen. It has to, only the org admin can make that change. Now we do have 2 other org admins. I'm kind of the lead on that, but if anything happens to me, Carlos Maltzon and Emily Lavelle are also org admins, so they can make those changes as well. But typically it's going through me unless I'm for some reason not around. So this is the quick timeline that all of you are going under. This period right now is what we're calling, the GSOC calls it the bonding period, community bonding period, but we're generally just call it the onboarding phase. And it should be, so all of you should have already had some conversations with mentors, or mentors, you should have already had conversations with your students, just to make sure everybody's set. You should know what your start date is. Again, there is flexibility, but generally the start dates are the first week of June. So if that's not what you're planning on, or you have a different idea, make sure the student and the mentor, make sure you and your mentors agree on it, and that I know about it. and that's pretty much what you need to do over the next week or a couple of weeks. Additionally, this is the time where you set up what you really think you should, how your communication should work. How many times a week you're gonna like meet up? Are you gonna meet up, asynchronously because of time zone issues? Do you think you can, have a quick chat, like half an hour a week, or we have some teams that like to meet up, and it works out for them to meet up for maybe half an hour a day just to check in via Zoom, and then go on from there, and that works great. Other groups can do it, maybe a longer meeting once a week. And sometimes it's just really hard to get an actual synchronous meeting set up. And so maybe groups do other things, use the Slack channel or another IRC or something that they find useful and works for them. But this is the time where you want to start to figure that out, what works for you as a team, and set it. Obviously things can change, but it's good to get at least a good idea started on that. There will be midterm evaluations. I'm sorry, I don't have the dates here. I realized I didn't double check it but GSOC, but you should be able to see, for GSOC students, you should be able to see it for on the portal. For summer reproducibility, I'll send up an email with the specific dates. I try, if there are projects that aren't fitting in that 10 to 12 week period, then you will probably have a unique date, because we do want to hit it kind of somewhere in the middle. So I have to look at each of your kind of project durations as well. So yeah, and that might be something, if you see me send out something saying, hey, your midterm is whatever, mid-July, but you're like, oh, that's not actually the midterm of the project for whatever reason, you can flag that with me. But I'll be sending those out over the next week or so for the summer reproducibility folks. Again, wrap up start kind of in the late August, early September, really based on what you and your mentor have decided, and largely based on when you're starting. A lot of you are starting back to your semesters or your quarters, your school terms, and so it's really good to try and wrap up all the work that you have done prior to that, because it gets really hard after. And you'll have, again, evaluations, a final project, a final product, all covered in that. Also, I have your October, but I think it's actually going to be late September that we'll be doing actual presentations for our summer students, and we'll have opportunities for them to present at conferences that we are organizing. So, and I'll talk about that in a bit. All right, I'm going to try and wrap up in the next few minutes to give people a chance for Q&A, but I do want to go that. Yeah, this is what I just already talked about. this is what we're doing right now. And let me see. And then of course, yes, you do all of this great work. See anything in here that's useful. Another thing is, yeah, I do need to have make sure that the project sizes don't adjust too much. If you see that there were two sizes, medium and large, kind of that's based on discussion. That's based on kind of the GSOC framework. SOR can be a little bit more flexible, but it's good to make sure that you don't, like, you're not doing a large, you're not being paid and compensated for a medium-sized project, which is basically a part-time, like 20 hours a week idea, but you're actually doing a large project, or vice versa. So that's something I'd like to make sure that mentors really keep an eye on, and students, and that it kind of stays within the scope of what the proposal said it was going to be. We also are asking students, and I'll talk about that in a second, to do a running report of activities for mentors and for me. So and a lot of that is, we've noticed over the years, that's a really good way of identifying when there are problems. If there's like something going on, timelines are slipping, seeing this early in this process of maybe just reporting very short little reports every couple weeks. And it'll probably be through a Google form that everybody just fills out some general questions that we can maybe identify if there's a problem, and then be able to intercede if their help is needed, both for the mentor or for the student. We're also using those little reports are a great way to actually also kind of create blogs throughout the process, and we'll be asking students to blog more this year, and we'll have a student page set up just for that. So, and it's also great if mentors have their own websites to also highlight the student, and people do, and that is definitely something we normally do, or mentors normally do. But we're also going to be highlighting those more than previous years on our own website too, and we want to kind of see more of a regular click of student blogs about what they're working on. All right, so I want to also, this section, I want to talk a little bit about expectations. First of all, I want to stop. Is there any questions on some of the processes or issues that we have? I can't see the other screen at the moment. So if there's any questions that are burning in people's minds that they want to ask right now before we move on to expectations, either pop it in the chat or just ask me. Just unmute yourself and ask.
Morning, Stephanie. Indira
Hi.
here. Really quick question. I kind of missed what you said about the project length. So some reason. So just to clarify, so did you say that these are all long projects and like 350 hours?
No, it's
also,
just, sorry. What?
Oh, I also had a clarification on the length. I read somewhere on the GSOC notification this year that they are a bit more flexible on the project end date, like it could somewhere in November. So I kind of I think they want to give students an opportunity to wrap up, and it's not like a hard stop in October. Right. Could you just comment on that?
Yeah, so
please?
Those
Thanks.
are two great questions, and good to have Indira back. She was our mentor last year, and I think it worked out great. So yes, so project sizes still are, especially for GSOC students, is still the 350 hours or the 175. We have a mix of those in our group. So I'm sorry if it sounded like I said only large projects. We have a mix of medium and large within our cohort. So just make sure you know as a mentor, and mentors know, and students know, and everybody agrees what that number is. Moving down isn't as big of a problem for GSOC. Moving, if you for some reason have an error where it's actually a medium-sized project and not a large project. Sorry, it's a medium. You were listed as a medium-sized project, but it's actually a large, which I think we had one of those at one point. That's a harder change to make from GSOC's perspective. From SOR, we can talk about it more. But GSOC has, like, because of the way they allot the numbers and the slots. And once we get to this point, it's really hard to make that change. But the other way around isn't as much. So if somebody realizes that, oh, I really can't spend this much time on a project, and so maybe I can bring down the number of hours that I actually am going to work and do like just a small part of the project as opposed to the larger one. That change is normally never a problem. But you just need to alert the me and then I have to alert GSOC, or if it's a GSOC project. With regards to end dates, it's still the number of hours don't change. It just lengthens when you're when it can be done. And so like I said, I think that the way they have it set up is similar to last year. If you remember, like how, for those of you who were here last year, how they allowed you to change end dates for projects throughout the program. And what that meant was that basically we just go back into the portal. I adjust, like manually adjust each of the whatever milestone dates, like the evaluation dates and the final evaluation and wrap up dates. And then it just kind of, and everything kind of like just adjusts based on what that final date is. And they have like a formula for you to do it. So that's totally allowable, but it's still within that whatever 350 or 175 hour limit of hours. So like the stipend doesn't change. It may change when you get paid it as a student. And the adjustment happens, like I said, in kind of in 2-week increments. So if you start out with a 12-week program, but you actually now want a 16-week program because you maybe need that extra time, then that's allowed. But you can't do like a 15-week program, So it has to be in these like 2-week incremental increments added on. So if that makes sense. So yes, there is a lot more flexibility than there had been in previous years, which was, I think, like only 10 or 12 weeks. But now it's like you can go into November, I think is the final date. I don't recommend that because I don't think we found that when it gets pushed that far out that it's helpful, especially as students start to go back to classes. But if it is something where it's like, oh, something came up in the middle of your program that was unforeseen, but you can see yourself adding on some time at like a few weeks or something at the end, and it'll help you get it all wrapped up, then that seems a totally reasonable idea. So I hope that answered that question.
Yes, thanks, Stephanie.
No problem. All right, I just go on unless we have other questions. And again, we'll have time at the end, hopefully, if I can, stop talking about if people have other Q&A. And again, if you're popping stuff into the document, I can't see it right now, so I'll try and wrap up anything from those questions as well before we end. So just expectations, and these are important ones for the contributors or the fellows, depending on which you are. So basically, and generally speaking, the students, though some of our contributors are not officially students, and they've graduated, which has been the great thing about the way the program is now finally. The newcomers can be from, don't necessarily have to be undergraduate students. But things to remember is keeping to your timelines and evaluation schedule, because a lot rides on those timelines. Again, we can be flexible if we know stuff ahead of time. If we know that you are having a problem, if you get sick, if the COVID times taught us a lot, where if somebody gets sick or something happens or somebody you're close to gets sick and you have to take care of them. There's all of these reasons that we completely understand and we are totally able to be flexible about. We just need to know. So communicating changes and any issues with your mentors and then with me is super important. So don't try and fix it on your own. Don't give us, especially for students, sometimes you think, oh no, I don't want to bug my mentor with that, or but it actually is a little self-defeating if you're trying to fix something and the mentor doesn't know what's going on. Because if the mentor knows what's going on, maybe it is still that you are the one fixing it, whatever the issue is, but at least they understand something is going on and they're not just going, oh, you just disappeared, or you don't have, you're not meeting your milestones like we decided. So mentors and org admins, we can be very flexible if there's something going on that you had unforeseen issues come up. That said, we do want people to make sure they're prioritizing their project over other activities. And some of you are doing it as part-time, but a lot of you are doing this technically as a full-time, which means this is kind of your job over the summer. So if there are other issues and activities that you have competing, you need to recognize that this needs to be a top priority. And sometimes it's hard I know it's hard for students if you are doing, maybe you have another, some activities that you have that are continuing from previously, but this is, again, is the agreement that you had with the mentors and with the organization was that this was going to be your priority over the summer. People are relying on you to really complete what you promised on your proposal. So don't disappear, don't go 2-week vacations without telling your mentors. And people might laugh, but these are things that we have to like, no, you can't do that. And again, people can have, breaks and vacations during this period, but it needs to be something where you, as in any job, you've let your supervisor, in this case, your mentor, know what's coming up. And it has been, and you guys y'all agree that it's, it's workable within the project timeline. And especially with the flexibility with timelines, if something comes up that's an emergency, we can change those timelines to deal with that emergency. So really, again, just communicating it with your mentors, recognizing it's your responsibility to make sure your mentors know if there's something like that coming up, that, and no, don't just not show up to a meeting because, you're somewhere else. Like, make sure your mentors know. So we also are asking again for reporting every other week. So it's every 2 weeks. I'll starting probably mid-June, give you guys time to do stuff to report on. And it'll be really short. Like I said, probably a Google form that everybody has to fill out the same questions. I'll probably try and structure it similar to the evaluation, so you're kind of used to this format prior to having to do the formal evaluations. And it's a great basis for the final deliverables when you're reporting it, so you can keep whatever you write and then, structure it for your final report of what you did, as well as, like I said, occasional blog posts, which we'll be trying to make more regular throughout this session. Another important one, I think, and this really hasn't been a major issue, but it's really, I just want to highlight it here, is that just everybody be respectful of everyone in the community. So not just, be respectful to your mentors, but also be respectful to the cohorts and the other students or other contributors you're working with. Be respectful to me, which I've honestly never had a problem with, but I mean, I think it's been great, but I just think it's something to keep in mind, especially if things are getting stressed or people are getting, if they're stressed, there's a lot of, timelines and milestones coming up and you may feel a little stressed. Just, remember to be respectful. We're all here. We're all on the same team. We're all here to help each other. So keep that in mind when you are working. So I think the next one, there we go. So I just want to go a little bit more about these reports and the blogs and the deliverable at the end. And I will probably be sending out more information on this directly to the contributors / fellows, just to clarify. So, if it just doesn't all make sense now, I'll try and do it throughout the next couple months. So like I said, I'll be creating a form for people to share reports. There are also midterm and final evaluations that are more formal. We're asking for regular blogging, and I'll show you a second how that all works. And then also, even with beyond this, it's great to share regular progress with your mentors. So you don't see this, the Google form and that type of thing is really for us to identify if there's problems, and also just to make sure that progress is happening. But also on an ad hoc basis, it's important to just have regular updates with your mentors as well. And at the end, which is, like I said, late September, we have an activity called event called the Open Source Symposium, which is based here in Santa Cruz, and we have the ability, we do it hybrid. So even for those of you who are, not in the US and can't travel to Santa Cruz, we have an opportunity to do either presentations or poster sessions or lightning talks. We have a number of different options that allow for hybrid participation as well. So, and you'll be hearing more about that. But we like to invite all of our successful students from the summer to somehow touch this. So yeah, so there'll be a few different options for people, whatever. So particularly whatever works out for time zones and that type of thing. So, and this is a quick what is just got put up on the website yesterday, or yeah, I think it was yesterday, about how to add the blog. I don't expect you to all see this now, but I'll post these. But this kind of gives you a quick idea of what the expectations are. The website there, the web page there, so is where these actual instructions are. And I will do, like I said, I will do a little bit more detailed email and /Slack post about that. So, all right, yeah, moving on. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but like I said, you'll see if you go to that website, webpage, you'll see it. For mentors, expectations, or a few of our mentors are online here. And I think we've talked about this because, you know, we've had other mentor sessions prior to this, but really communicate regularly. Don't leave your students hanging. But assist as much as you can, getting contributors or fellows over any challenges. So it's really worth it to help them out to get over challenges. If it's something that's really hard for you to work on and you need help from org admins, that's what I'm here for as well. Make sure you give them input, like particularly the timely evaluations and input on reports. And evaluations should not be late, and especially for GSOC students, but I'm going to enforce it as well for summer reproducibility. Those evaluations really impact the timeliness of stipends. So getting them in late. And for GSOC, actually, as well, I want to highlight this for any GSOC mentors on the call, that if we have too many, I think if we even just have 1 or 2 late evaluations, we are deemed for potentially being an or a mentor organization next year. So it's really important to me that you're not late for that reason. And I am typically I start checking about 2 or 3 days ahead of time, see where who have not given evaluations, and I start bothering you really quickly after that. And ultimately, if push comes to shove and you go, I really can't do that evaluation, I can do the evaluations for you. I don't want to do that. I've never had to do that, but I will do that instead of having something late. But I don't like doing that because I don't have a view of what the students are doing. And these evaluations are really short. So you can really get it done in 5 or 10 minutes. So it's also something to keep in mind. Again, let me know as soon as you see a problem. If you have any issues that you're concerned about with your student that you think it needs a little bit more intervention or accommodations, let me know. And don't wait to the evaluation periods to indicate that there's a problem. It's great to know ahead of time about that. And it's great if you support student work, and particularly by highlighting on your own website. And I really indicate, I really like if when we do have presentations and opportunities for students to present their work, that their mentors are also there, because that's a really great support for them as well. Oops, went the wrong way. There we go. What do I have to do? What are my expectations? And then expectations of the other admins as well. And again, I'm kind of lead admin, but Carlos and Emily are also there to help if, especially if I'm not available. So I track overall progress, and I'm making sure, generally just making sure it doesn't look like we're losing anybody. I am a really stickler about reminding you about deadlines. I'm happy to clarify administrative issues. Like I said, the GSOC ones may be something that I don't have purview on, but I will know who to ask at GSOC. I'm allowed to change project duration, so if there's an issue, you let me know. I'm also happy to work with students to accommodate some needs as appropriate, and I'd also mediate any issues if there's anything that arises. Now, for the non-GSOC and for non-GSOC students, we are the ones that actually are arranging your stipends and dealing with a lot of programmatic issues. For the GSOC students, all that goes through GSOC. So, and again, all those administrative arrangements are going to start in the next couple of weeks. You'll start seeing emails from folks on our end. All right, things to keep in mind as we're wrapping up. I don't know if this is going to hit any of the students on this call, but I really want to reiterate, because there was some confusion over the course, that anybody who's US based, if you're not a US citizen, but you are here in the US working on any of these programs, you need some level of work authorization. I am totally happy to help with that. SOR students, I've already been in contact with you about getting what you need. And again, this is just for people that are physically in the US. It doesn't know that if you are in your own country doing your home country doing the work, then this does not pertain to you at all. That there's also, I know some GSOC students who may be US based, but not US citizens or green card holders. Reach out to me if that's you and we haven't talked yet, because you will also be needing some sort of authorization. And my understanding is that I can help with that based on what I understand from the GSOC site. Also remember to communicate problems, challenges as soon as possible. You can ask for accommodations and we can do what we can do to help. We try and do as much as we can to help. We want you to be successful. We want your project to be successful, and we can, within reason, try to help you make it work. Again, deadlines are strict, but timelines can be adjusted if we know ahead of time. But if you're hitting up a deadline like, oh, we have a deadline in 2 days, it's better not to make that change. It's better to have known about this like a week prior if you need to make a change. Now the project is yours, but remember, you're also part of the community. So you have to do your work, but you're part of a community working together on the overall project that you're supporting. So be responsible and be accountable for the work that you need to do and that you've promised and worked with your mentor on. And the same for mentors. Mentors have to be responsible and accountable to their students. If they promise to help them on something or promise to give them information or support, that also needs to be followed up on. And we really, really, really encourage you to stick around after the project, after the program is over. You're now part of our community. And we'd like to continue to see you either, as part of the open source community that you have been working on over the summer, or part of the research for the summer reproducibility projects that you've been working on. We like to support you. We think long-term, it's actually really useful from a career perspective to show that you have been doing this work and continue to work on the projects even after the program. And so we definitely highly recommend you sticking around. Obviously, recognizing that you will be either students or have other responsibilities, but being part of once you're in the community, you don't have to think that you're out of the community just because the program is over. All right, so ask me questions. Any questions? You can ask me now. You can also follow up with me on Slack. And most of you should still be on the Slack channel, or you can always email me. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And great. So let me look. If there were any questions, feel free to just ask me questions now, or let me see if there's any questions on that one page. I didn't see any questions on the shared Google form. So any questions from students or mentors? Also, any comments from all previous mentors or any of the other org admins on the call? Things I might have missed? Let me see. All good. Thank you, Aldrin. So I'll probably, feel free to keep, to chime in if you have questions or if you want to add something on the chat. We'll try and do more of these, but I'll probably, because I know it's so hard to get everybody, and like looking at some of you folks saying you're at 12 a.m. and 10 p.m. I'm not going to require this. This will never be required to do anything this late. So I appreciate all of you who showed up at odd hours. I would like to do things like more asynchronous activities. Obviously, it may actually be useful to kind of figure out where groups are geographically and try and have some synchronous activities based on that. Like, okay, all of you are in one or a time zone that's not too far away from each other. And then we have a small group then, and then stagger it throughout the day, kind of similar to what we're trying to do here. Keep in mind that I might not want to be up at 2 a.m. to do this, but again, but that would be a really, I think, a nice thing to do. And that's one of the reasons I like, again, asked where people are going to be during the summer, because then I can start really figuring out where your clusters of geographic clusters are, and maybe create opportunities for meeting together as a cohort there too as well. All right, we have about 5 minutes, but you see. Oh, why don't I, Carlos, did you want to say hi? You weren't on the call at the very beginning, so I wanted to make sure you also introduced yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Carlos Malzahn. I'm the director of CROSS and the OSPO, and I'm really, really happy that you guys are part of this program. Thank you, the mentors, for making themselves available, posting interesting projects, and then thank you for the contributors for applying for these programs and these projects. So I'm really excited to see this going for another summer. And this is a bigger program this summer than it ever was before. And so I think I'm very excited that this is really taking off. So, and thank you, Stephanie, for organizing this all. This is really awesome.
Great. Okay, great. Does anybody else have questions or any comments that they want to make, especially any old old mentors, mentors who previously worked for us, who have any additions, things that they thought would be helpful, maybe be helpful, little comments at this point? Dear, or no, sorry, that's how you unmute yourself. But yeah, we have a lot of great mentors. So for, like I said, I'm still using the Slack channel. I will probably go through and edit it so that people who ultimately didn't get or aren't part of the program in the end, who may have joined during the application period, are removed. So it will just be our private Slack channel for, again, and this is, again, the Slack channel is not a professional one. It is a free service one. So the information, though, if you have anything in there that you want to keep, make sure you've copied it somewhere else, because it does get removed after 3 months. And and we will have, I will probably have I have already there separate channels for SOR versus GSOC, but I will try and use those basically just to make sure that so that you can find specific things for which program you're technically attached to. But then we also have the general channel for everyone for issues that are common to everyone in the program. All right, great. Well, if there aren't questions, I'm going to let everybody go. If there are questions that people think of later, again, you have my email. Everybody has my email. Everybody knows where to find me on chat. I'm sorry, on Slack. So feel free to reach out there. And if you're a SOR student, you'll be hearing from me very soon for administrative things. So and if you're a GSOC student and you have strange things pop up, you can always reach out to me as well. So, all right, great. Thanks, everybody. Oh, you have Louisa, did you have a question? Sorry.